Hello, everyone, and welcome back. And thank you for tuning in again live today. It is Monday, March 11th, here on the East Coast of the U.S. It is now noon, and you are currently watching a special live interview that we have going on with Joe Phillips from the UK. I am your host for today, Jason Leeser. And if this is working for you, please let me know in the comments and in the chats, and please tag a friend who loves tattoos. And welcome to Guy Aitchison's Reinventing the Tattoo Community, where tattooers, apprentices, collectors, and the curious are encouraged to join in these live streams, real world events, to share and inspire and ultimately create better art and tattoos together. We beam out nearly every day, and with your help, have evolved into a quality network of amazing live and on demand tattoo and art shows that have all been receiving rave reviews. You can find Reinventing the Tattoo in both of the app stores, the Apple App Store and the Google Play Store, as well as our Reinventing the Tattoo YouTube channel, our Reinventing the Tattoo Roku channel, which has 12 to 15 different episodes going at any given time, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, as well as all of the major podcast directories such as Apple and Spotify. Or you can do what most people do and just pull up your web browser and do a quick search for Reinventing the Tattoo, and all of it will pop up there as well, except for the book, which is still currently out of print. If you come across a copy that is for sale, please, by all means, let me know. I'm trying to get my hands on another copy. Not that I expect anyone to be selling them now, but, wishful thinking, right? But no matter where you were watching live or on demand, you can always get the latest and most up to date information, all available at www.reinventingthetattoo.com. You can try it out for free. You do not have to subscribe right away. You can pick one of three different options. We have a sample webinar from the Reinventing the Tattoo Canon, or you can get some free advice from Guy Aitchison about your unique goals, or you can take a comprehensive tattoo history course from Jay Brown. For fellow tattoo history nerds such as myself, you cannot go wrong with the tattoo history course. You can also find a full event schedule with weekly and special event live stream details, such as today's episode, all available at reinventingthetattoo.com, as well as access to our Reinventing 24/7 channel, which is a lot like our Roku channel. It's got 13 different episodes playing 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You can also find access to a whole host of professional development on demand seminars from over 20 world class tattoo artists. For example, BJ Betts has a lettering seminar. If you want to learn how to tattoo skulls like Bob Tyrell, well, he's got a whole skull seminar there, and I'm pretty sure it's about 8 hours long. It's a great seminar. Andre Malcolm has a few seminars on there where you can go through and learn some of his tricks, some of his tips on how he does what he does. All of that and a lot more is available at reinventingthetattoo.com. Once again, if this is working for you, please let us know in the comments and in the chat, and please tag a friend who loves tattoos. We have a number of weekly staple shows that we always encourage people to join into. Starting off on Mondays at 9 a.m., we have Drawing for Tattooers with James Wisdom, where we get to go through and discuss basic drawing techniques and strategies to help us get back to our roots of being a fine artist in this tattoo world that we live in. Following that, on Mondays at noon, we have the Skill Building Monday Drawing Group with me, Jason Leeser, which gives us a great place to go through to help us build some of our skills and work on some of these skills that we've picked up along the way, whether it's Procreate tips and tricks, whether it's learning how to make your own brushes in Procreate, working with digital media, working with analog media, maybe it's covering painting or drawing aspects of something. All of that and a lot more is covered, and that's Mondays at noon for the Skill Building Monday Drawing Group. Following that and capping off Monday evenings at 9 p.m., we have a subscribers exclusive drawing group with Sandy McAndrew, and you will have to have a subscription to the Reinventing the Tattoo Canon or the Reinventing the Tattoo Evolution course in order to access those live Monday night drawing groups. I can tell you from personal firsthand experience, having taken those Monday night groups for the better part of 2 years straight, you can see a marked difference in the work that I was doing when I started and the work that I was doing after I completed them. And it is a monumental world of difference. I cannot stress to you enough that the cost of the program is absolutely 100% worth it just for the Monday night drawing groups alone. Highly, highly recommend it. Take my word on it. Or better yet, take a look at some of the people that you know that have gone through the program. Look at their work. And that's all on Mondays. Taking a look at Tuesday at 11 a.m., we have the Tattoo Weekly Show hosted by Gabe Ripley, Lauren Gregory, and Fawn Baker. And that will go through and help us cover all of the current events in tattooing going on in this day and age. On Wednesdays at 12 noon, we have the Tattoo Now show with Gabe Ripley, where we do a deeper dive into the business aspect behind tattooing. So if you want to learn more about marketing, advertising, travel visas, if you're planning on traveling somewhere and you want to go there to work, maybe you're doing a guest spot for a month in Spain or Portugal or the UK, who knows? Take a look at tattoonow.com with Gabe Ripley, where we go through and we discuss a lot of these deeper business aspects to this industry. And capping off the week on Thursdays at 6 p.m., we have the Tattoo Collecting 101 podcast with Fawn Baker, which gives us a great place to go through and share some of our stories about tattoo collecting and what we've experienced along the way. We have a number of special live events coming up fairly soon. March 22nd through 24th, I will be at the Skindustry Tattoo Expo in Allentown, Pennsylvania. Feel free to stop by and say hi, come out, get tattooed. It's a smaller show, but the caliber of artists there is absolutely spectacular. You will not be disappointed. That is March 22nd through 24th, the Skindustry Tattoo Expo in Allentown, Pennsylvania. Following that, May 17th through 19th, Reinventing the Tattoo will be live from Columbus, Ohio at the Hell City Tattoo Convention. And look at this lineup, folks. At Hell City this year, we have special guests that include Paul Booth, Derb Morrison, Joe Capobianco, Jimmy Litwalk, Nico Perez, Ty McEwen, James Vaughn, Jesse Levitt, Ron Earhart, Marshall Bennett, well, and of course me. I'll be there too. So stop by, take a look at Hell City Tattoo Convention, May 17th through 19th in Columbus, Ohio. Following that, June 23rd through 25th, also out in Columbus, Ohio at the Red Tree Gallery, we will be having another Reinventing the Tattoo live event. And that will be co-hosted by Rember and all of his staff. It's going to be an excellent time. So if you're looking for some more personal seminars live in person, take a look. That is a Reinventing the Tattoo live event, June 23rd through 25th in Columbus, Ohio. Would like to go through and take a second to thank some of our sponsors and some of the people that make these shows happen. Starting off with worldtattooevents.com, the largest, most comprehensive resource for tattoo events worldwide. They're constantly keeping everything updated. As we know, living in this post-pandemic era, there are still tattoo events and conventions that are getting rescheduled. So if you want to stay up to date with the latest, most up-to-date tattoo event or convention information coming to a city or town near you, or maybe it's one you plan on visiting, it's how I usually base all of my vacations, take a look at worldtattooevents.com. Would also like to thank tattoonow.com, technology for tattooers, the leading edge in professional development, management, and digital tools for tattooers of all levels. They are 100% competitive with any type of CRM, mailing list, or scheduling software out there. So if you're really looking for the digital tools that will help you streamline your booking process, get you more clients, and help you be more efficient with tattooing, take a look at tattoonow.com. Would also like to thank the man, the myth, and the legend, Guy Aitchison, both personally and professionally. You can go to guyaitchison.com. He is the founder and inspiration behind Reinventing the Tattoo. You can pick up a copy of his Biomech Encyclopedia, some of his tutorial DVDs. I think he still has a couple custom coil machines for sale, as well as countless fine art prints and the occasional painting, all for sale at guyaitchison.com. Would also like to say a very quick thank you and shout out to the Apprenticeship Diaries with Amy Nichols, the number one resource for people looking to get more information on a tattoo apprenticeship, or if you are an apprentice hopeful and you want to learn more about what it's like to be a tattoo apprentice. Take a look at the Apprenticeship Diaries podcast with Amy Nichols, and I can guarantee you, you will not be disappointed. There we go. As always, we ask that if you like today's show, make sure to hit that like and subscribe button down at the bottom of the page. Make sure to post a positive review on the channel as well. It's up to you to tell us whether or not we're doing a good job. If you would like to host a Reinventing the Tattoo event, become a sponsor of our community. Or if you are looking for a fine art or a tattoo critique, you can always email management at reinventingthetattoo.com, and we will get back to you just as soon as we can. Without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, it is with great pleasure and great honor that I introduce to you Joe Phillips, beaming in all the way from the UK. Joe, welcome aboard, and thank you for joining us today. Let me go over here, and I'm just going to set this up. There we are. Wonderful.
Thanks for the introduction, Jason. That was lovely.
You're very welcome. I've done it quite a few times. I've gotten very good at it over the years. So let's start off. Why don't you tell me where you're from and where do you work and a little bit about yourself?
So we've got so my name's Joe as well. Sorry, I know you've introduced, but I always feel weird if I don't say that before I start my story, right? So that's the beginning. I'm from South Wales. So Barry is 100 years ago, it was the largest coal exporting town in the world. So we've got this kind of old industrial kind of history. The famous Jesse Knight was our lead like tattooist back in the day. My grandfather got tattooed by her when he was 16, and she was the son of like I think Thomas Knight, who was like a Wild West gunslinger and ended up working in the circus, and she was like 80 years old when she tattooed my grandfather. So we've got this like old history, and she was just a badass, you know. She had this kind of strong man that would kind of stand outside her shop looking menacing on Thompson Street where all the brothels were, and you know, it was a proper like seedy old place back in the day when all the ships would come into the port, and you know, it was so we've kind of got this old history. And then, you know, about 16, 17 years ago, I rocked up. I went and got my first tattoo done after being guilt tripped about like my ex had my name done on her, and she guilt tripped me into having her tattoo done, right? Her name tattooed on me. So that was it, my first one. And from there, I just fell in love. Before that, my dad had an old school biker tattooist friend called Dobbin, and as a kid, I just saw him on such a high pedestal. Right, this guy could just draw like no other. He would just engrave mirrors and, you know, dual tanks, and the second this guy put a stencil on my body, it was very much a case of like, oh, that was a bit of a cheat, you know. I've got something to follow now, and it's just like a pen. I could do that. And I asked the guy, and he was a bit of an old anarchist punk. It was in a proper shop, and I said, okay, can I learn? Like, how can I get into this? You know, I'll show you my drawings. He had a little look at my drawings, and his advice was to buy a kit off eBay, which come in, bring in your pictures, and here's the Huck Spalding book, so you can learn about cleanliness and the basics, and that was it. He didn't have the space in the shop for me, so I bought an old Prestige pot sterilizer, and I made everything clean in my house. And you know, I was taking my photos to and fro, and yeah, he was a good egg. Wasn't the best way. I didn't really know until about a year in that like that was definitely not the best way to go about things. But you know, I'd left home a week after my 16th birthday. I'd already had a crazy early life, and I couldn't have done a 3-year unpaid apprenticeship, to be honest. So, you know, maybe I could have, but in the headspace I was at the time, there was just no chance. And then being in the shop and getting to know my clients, I think it was about 2 years in where I kind of really started feeling the responsibility of our role, right? I was already trying to do better, just out of basic business sense. The only other tattooist in Barry, you know, an amazing guy. I'm not going to run him down. He's past, love him now. Lee Clements, what a hero of tattooing. But, he was going through some stuff and he would not turn up on clients and that. So I'd have his overflow, and that kept me busy for the first couple of years, and so out of trying to just get better, I went and guested in a tattoo shop in the Channel Islands with Matt Burdett and Nico Dre, and both of those guys are like 14 years in and 7 years in, and both of them were just excellent, like real craftsmen who just love their art. And Matt was a very solid traditional tattooer, and Nico was a very soft black and grey artist. So between the pair of them, I got everything I needed to get me started. And then while we were there, my partner at the time got pregnant for a kid. So we returned back to Barry, and then I got to put into play my first 3.5 years of experience, and really, I did a few guest spots while I was kind of saving up money, or very open, I'm going to open up my own shop, very honest about it, and just kind of worked for 50% again. Like I hadn't done that ever, like the first shop that I opened, I was 20 years old, and I opened it myself after, I'd been in a non-tattoo artist owned shop for 3 months, and he was just ripping us off, and he didn't give us any support. And I basically saw how to run it from there, and I was like, well, I can do that myself at 20. I'd left home at 16, so I was pretty independent. It wasn't the best way to go about things, but it was definitely a learning curve, and it got me to that position in Guernsey where I could really pick up the skills. And a lot of those early clients from back then I still have great relationships with. A lot of them are friends and family, and they won't let me do the touch-ups on these old tattoos. They just enjoy I think crucifying me a little bit there. And then after that, in 2012, I opened up in Vere Street, which is where I am now. I've been there, well, since then, 12 years. And during lockdown, we moved in from like a single artist when we could kind of squeeze a second artist in, which I had intermittently over the years. And then during lockdown, I from the ground up, we had a purpose-built tattoo studio with separate rooms for every artist. There's, originally it was just me, my apprentice, and a guest booth. And by the time we built it, it was 4 booths and all full. And we're just a very tight-knit group. It was always people first. I love seeing the potential in people, and my apprentice was super hungry. Jess, she's just like a real force. She does some beautiful work, very clean. She'd had a bad apprenticeship for a couple of years before, and it didn't really work out. So she really appreciated the opportunity and took very little nagging, and taking on an apprentice at that point, I think I was, a good few years in, and I felt like I was ready to kind of impart it. I didn't want to skivvy. It was a case of come in and you can just work on your drawing, get your basics down, get your fundamentals for a year, just show me that you can really listen, take direction, understand all the styles. And so she came with me. She earned her own room in the new shop, and it was to kind of accommodate both of us. And yeah, so we're in there now, Vere Street Tattoos 2, Mark II. And at the back of the building, there's a 2-story workshop, which is underdeveloped at the moment. But this month, we finally put our name on the premises. We've just completed, and the back's going to be a 2-story art workshop, so community art project. So yeah, that's kind of where we are now. Beanie and Arthur, the other 2 guys who work in, both have about 8 to 10 years experience each, and just down to earth, like where we are in the street. It's full of crackheads and people that have been on the other side of the law for a long time, but mixed in with old school Barry families with just good old school values, and just they're also our cousins, these crackheads, right? So there's a baseline of compassion, and I feel like we serve a vital role in community. Like, these people aren't going to counsel us, and the door's open for coffees. If even if tattoo time, you can't afford that right now, it's one of those kind of places where we can just, I really value that role, especially after being on the street for 12 years. You kind of get to know the ins and outs of people's lives, and Yeah, so that's why I'm not a millionaire. Yeah, I'm a bit soft, but you know what? I'm happy, and like I live 3 streets away from my grandmother's. You know, and everything's nearby. I'm raising kids at the minute. I've got a 6-year-old and a 12, coming up to 13-year-old, and
Bravo.
yeah, that's the stage of life where I'm at now. Just enjoying, still trying to put between 5 and 20 hours of work into my outside of tattoo and artwork. You know, I think I did a business seminar a few years back with Gabe, and there was this principle of you do 5 hours towards your career a week, you know, and I've stuck by it for the last 7 years, and it's put me in very good stead. So thank you, Gabe. If ever you see this, it was a good tip. So yeah.
Yeah, Gabe has changed many lives.
Yeah.
Many lives.
The
I
OG
will be
tattoo
the
business manager.
absolutely. And it's funny, like listening to him. So I live a couple of states away from him. It's probably like a 5 or 6 hour drive. Um, and I remember he hit me up the one day and he's like, "Hey man, I want to send you something. What's your address? What's your home address and whatever." And I, sent it to him. I had already been talking to him for a little bit at this point in time. And it's not like I'm just going to give out my home address to, anyone. So, um, but I was in the middle of a broadcast one Sunday because this used to be held on Sundays, and I hear this knock at the door, and I'm like, "Who's that?" And I open up the door, and it's Gabe, and he's standing there, and I'm like, "You're real." Because at this point in time, we had never met in person. If we did, it was very briefly at some convention like 10, 15 years ago, and I was like, "You're an actual real dude. Like,
Yeah.
come on in, man, grab a cup of coffee." But great guy. We, sat down, did some live broadcasting together. It was pretty great. But it was a real like eye opener that, like things do happen for a reason, where you are right now, it's exactly where you're meant to be at this point in time,
Yeah.
and as long as you're continuing to work to progress, then you're on the right path. And that's what matters.
Yeah.
Um, same thing could be said for my life. I was in a tiny little hole in the wall crap studio for the better part of 10 years, getting my feet wet, getting my skills built up and all that stuff. And before that, I was bouncing around between different studios. And, finally I made the move and moved into a better studio. And it's like everything in my life changed. Started taking the reinventing the tattoo course, got the yearly subscription for that. And it was like, from there, things just kind of took off. And I'm now finding myself in the position where it's like, should I fly out and get tattooed by Philip Liu this year, or should I wait until next year? And it's
Wow.
like, I never thought I would be in that kind of a position, you know, let alone I met the guy once. So I've been to the UK a couple of times for the old London tattoo convention, which is now Gods of Ink over in Germany, run by Mickey Violetto. Fantastic show. Highly recommend it if you ever get the chance to go to that. Met Philip one time and was like starstruck. I was fanboying so hard. It's one of those like, uh, I'm
Got one of those
shaking your
giant
hand.
stickers,
Yeah,
you know.
yeah, I didn't even want to wash my hand for fear that I would get rid of the magic that he had left on my skin, you know. But now I'm at the position where it's like, not only do I get to shake his hand, I have the option to get tattooed by him. That was never a concept in my wildest years,
Yeah.
ever. I never thought I would ever, come up with that opportunity, let alone get tattooed by some of the other people that I have been tattooed by in the past few years. It was incredible. Um, Taking a pilgrimage out to Hyperspace Studios to go and visit Guy, that was life altering. And that all happened within the past few years. So it was really fantastic just to see the way that things have snowballed. Once you get your mind on track, once you get into that right kind of mindset and environment, things really do start to take off.
Yeah.
So bravo, man. Great background. And I love where you're at now and can't wait to see where you go in the next few years. That is going to be epic. I do have a few more questions on this interview. I know I'm supposed to be interviewing you instead of talking myself. So let's get back to you because that is the purpose of today. Who would you say some of your biggest influences or inspirations are for your artwork? Because I know you're extremely diversified. I've watched a lot of the videos you have posted on Instagram. I've seen the paintings. You're doing 3D models now. Like you're extremely diverse in the artwork that you create. Number one, impressive. I'm a painter. I've always been a painter. I've dabbled in like three-dimensional stuff. Not for me. It's not the way my mind processes unless I'm dealing with tattoos. But where do you draw your inspiration from? Like where does your influence come from?
So there's two answers to that question, or two sets of answers. So the first set of answers would come from the tattooing, and then, this is how I ended up getting to know Gabe. Right, is like with Off the Map and the connected artists to his network. Right, Guy Aitchison. I love James Kern. Like
Yes.
his detail. Like I'm gutted. I had an opportunity to take a class once, and I think there was a clash between him and Jeff Gogwe, and at the time Jeff Gogwe was like my number one ever, and like that was that again another life changing seminar. Um, Guy, obviously, Mech Master Mike actually it was a huge inspiration of mine. So like there were these kind of an Adrian Lee. So when I was first buying tattoo magazines, like there was like one with 3 full body suits of this big transcendental imagery on, and I was just like, I have never seen work like that, and it just absolutely changed the game for me. So like the real visionaries that like iterated um, in different ways that seemed to bring something different to tattooing. So, and then like also not being constrained by the usual limitations. So like those are the type of artists that I loved, and like just so happens that like through Off the Map that's connected to all of them. And Raptor Laser, Matt Driscoll, one of my favorite dudes ever. I'm so lucky to have a piece by him from when I was there last time. And it was just a dream come true to just kind of be around that environment and meet all the guys. Like you said, oh, you're a real dude, about Gabe.
Yeah.
It was the same with all of that and with those guys, and just being around it and just like being normal with it all, and just like, oh, right, okay, actually, I can see myself fitting in here with everyone. I'm a normal, real person. As long as you just chill out and you just listen and pay attention and you show willing, like the conviction and the love for what we do, like is something that we can really bond with when you find others in the community that are like that, right? So like I think as long as it's sincere and like like you wouldn't travel to the other side of the world to just like go and hang out with tattooists, or travel to Lausanne in Switzerland to get tattooed if you didn't just love the craft as well, right? So and I think that's what I saw in these guys' work. Like there was a drive to create something bigger, just out of a love for either the novelty or the art form itself, or you know. I, so that's the tattoo side, and then within Thrader, which is an art house in the Bay Area, which is the wheelhouse of Jonathan Salter, Seth MacMahon, like all these amazing psychedelic painters who just, Alex Gray, obviously, he, the old grandfather Alex, like what a legend. So through that, I had this kind of visionary background, and I was going through a bit of a crossroads in my early life. My eldest mother moved away to the Channel Islands. That's where she's from. So she moved back there when my son was 2. And that was complicated for a while. And, I was looking for a way to help my mental health, but also I was really going through a big creative, like, I want to bring something different to bear. So I went into mushrooms, right? And I'd been listening to the Psychedelic Salon for about a year. And through that, I found like the right spirit to approach psychedelics and how they can be used for mental health. But also my favorite artists from the visionary painting scene are all kind of getting into this. So I went to Amsterdam, spoke to the guy over the counter. It's all legal there, a bit way ahead of their time over in Britain. That is not the case. And then just had this experience where, I'd been drawing on this tracing paper pad, and, it's just like a blue pencil sketch, and I was having an auditory hallucination. And it was like every time I was getting too involved, it would knot up, right? So I just flip the page, and then I'd just relax, and I'd get like a cheering, And the second I'd knot up, I'd just hear this voice, oh, he thinks he's better than nature, oh, he thinks he's great, okay, I'll just flip the page, And I finished the whole pad, and as I was looking down through the layers, there was a harmony, right? And you could see where all of these relaxed lines were. I was like, oh, that's the patterns from money. That's French curves. I bet Matt Driscoll has done mushrooms. And I had all these other intuitions. And actually, I'm not going to grass him up or anything, but there was an intuition amongst those which was correct, And I was just like, what is it that when you surrender the need to get too involved, something comes through you, right? Then I did my first few tattoos. And then when I was doing these kind of galaxy scene backgrounds, I didn't want to just rip Hubble Nebula. So as I was doing these little galaxy things, the best, most organic shapes are when I let go again and I find that same place. So then it's been a decade of following that flow state, following that channeling through different mediums, bringing it back to tattooing, going back to painting, probably, half a year at a time where I'm really into the painting, and then I'll make a few mock-ups, and then it'll be do the tattoos that come as a result of that iteration of the language. And it's just been a seesaw, like the one feeds the other, and it's just been my fundamentals. I'll work across the board. I'll do pretty much anything apart from a color realism portrait, because I just haven't had the inclination. Really, like Chris Jones is a local artist who's incredible in Cardiff, who does that, and so I was just like, I can't compete with that. I'm going to go my own way, and so yeah, in the last few years, I found the guys that are prepared to give me whole limbs to experiment and be this kind of cutting edge piece of novelty, right? But yeah, it's that feeling of channeling in whatever medium, even if I'm doing just galaxy space stuff now, and it's not all the brush stroke and the more pattern work stuff. Thank you very much, Mohawk. Yeah. But yeah, that's those are my artists, and that's the feeling that I tend to follow anyway. So yeah,
that's awesome, man. Yeah, we were having a little bit of a discussion before this about when you take something from one area and you pull it off, and you really play with it and do some experimentation, and you reapply it, how it can really have a completely different concept of what it can just become. And understanding evolution of design and how nature has that path that it wants you to follow, and try not to fight it, surrender to the artwork.
I think that was like one of the key moments, like in 2014, when I was like, oh, you're a real artist, right? So I painted a few of these small little squares and put them on separate days, and then I put them together, and there was a flow that went through multiple small canvases, and I was like, oh yeah, okay, there's something going on here that I'm just going to keep at it. And that was like the drive to keep going with it, following that sense of rightness as well, and just to then apply it in different ways, exactly like you say. I know we mentioned Marcus Leonard, but that's a perfect example where he'll use the chitin of a shrimp or some type of crustacean, and then just like, I like the join of those limbs, and we're going to just, there we are, we'll blow that up, or we'll fractalize it, or it's yeah, anyway,
yeah,
he's good.
yeah. So what would you say, coming from an artistic standpoint, what would you say you consider to be your primary medium as an artist? Would you say you're primarily a painter, or you outside of tattooing, of course? Would you say that you gravitate more towards drawing, sketching, more painting, digital artwork? Well, how would you define that?
I think even when I've gone back to digital now, I'm trying to replicate, like I've made some brushes which will replicate the type of shape that a Philbert will make, You know, like I'm really fascinated by the idea of brush geometries, right? So when you have a big wide brush that you've kind of cut down yourself, you know, I just end up like, you know, making a huge filbert out of these. I love like the striations, and I like how the brush geometries and like creates a new type of novelty based on whether I've neglected my brushes or not, right? And that tells its story in its own subtle way. And then within those striations, that'll be where I can put pattern work now. So it's like having something that is a bit more organic and chaotic, like painting. And when I was first prototyping the first full sleeves, and even to this day, if anybody says, I want you to tattoo, you know, a full color sleeve, I'll take photos of that and I'll actually paint it physically, you know, with gouache, which I love gouache. It's very simple, very straightforward for just mocking things up real quick. But otherwise, I use golden fluid acrylics, which are incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, they are just absolutely wonderful.
Yeah.
You know, when I went to study in Vienna, the Academy of Visionary Art, you know, after getting back from America, I kind of realized I wanted to develop myself more as an artist, develop my own language and my identity as an artist before rejoining the conversation, which is actually now the first time since then. And it's like when I was in Vienna at the Academy of Visionary Art, we were taught like this layered painting process, right, where you can paint in whites and, you know, you'll do a glaze over all of it, and then you do another row of whites, and, you know, you kind of have these optical grays and you get this almost crystalline effect with your painting. Actually, this painting here is from that class. Amanda Sage painted this particular version. And you can kind of see a little bit in the background how it's got this kind of layered effect, and she'll paint all the whites over the top of, you know, it all starts red. And then like you'll do all the whites and then glaze parts yellow and then all the whites and then the blues. You know, it's intensive, but using oil paint, it just creates this super lustrous look. But you can get a similar look from the fluid acrylic, especially the very glossy, juicy ones like the phthalo blue. You know, yeah, just the phthalo blue. How good is that color? Like, you know,
Yeah.
you know,
I've got a big bottle of that sitting on my shelf over there.
yeah.
Trust me. I use that in every painting I do. Even if it's only an orange painting, I will find somewhere to put phthalo blue somewhere in it.
You don't need
Just
much.
no, it goes a long way.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you know, I work in a lot of glazes as well and a lot of different types of layers to get layered effects. And I know a lot of tattooers that work that way as well, where, you know, they'll do, you know, they'll rough in and block in certain areas for the first round. And then they'll have the client come back and they'll literally tattoo like they're oil painting,
Yeah.
or they're working with, you know, as you mentioned, like transparent, like fluid acrylics. I prefer the fluid acrylics. Saves a lot of time for anyone out there looking for tips. Trust me, try them. You can't go wrong.
Yeah.
But they'll tattoo in that same methodology and in the same manner, where it's layer upon layer upon layer upon layer upon layer to get the desired effects that they're actually looking to achieve. And the look that you get cannot be replicated by any single pass tattoo. It's impossible.
Yeah.
It
I love
blows
it.
my mind.
And like finding those clients that are prepared to come on that journey with you as well. You know, despite being a bit of a challenge, I've got one guy and my partner who he's been with me for 13 years now, and he's just like, okay, yeah, do it as long as it needs, you know. And he's all for the novelties, he's and to be something different. And you know, he, yeah, maybe I'll show a bit of his work later on, but when you're able to put layers of pattern work over the top, you know what I was saying before, within the striations of the paintbrushes, right? It's like I don't tend to design every single layer, so I'll have my paint version that I'll put on. I'll paint it directly on with fluid stencil stuff. You know, we get the basic frame and structure of it, and then building in like layers, especially like with the use of like opaque whites, and so you get this kind of optical gray with the whites on top of that, which I'm just really in love with at the moment. But yeah, it takes a bit of time, and finding the right people that want to come on that journey with you has been, you know, finding that has been one of the best things about staying put for long enough. Now that I've been in the street for 12 years, like my regulars are coming to it, and I've got like long time guys that are just like allowing me to have a little bit more flexibility where I've looked after them. And so building those client relationships is super important, as you, especially for a layered technique, you know.
Yeah,
It's but the results speak for themselves.
absolutely. So, have you noticed any kind of a correlation between the paintings and the drawings that you do, and your technique with that in conjunction with the tattoos that you produce? I'm assuming that you're going for more of that layered technique across the board.
Yeah, so I find that as I kind of get to a slump, and there's like a period or a series that I'll do, like just looking back to some of these bottles, one of these was like one of the kind of turning points, right? So everything was very organic like this while I was painting the galaxy stuff, and then during the painting of the bottles, these curls came in, and then that informed the brush geometry aspect of my work. You know, this is before any of the pattern work a few years before. So it's like you can kind of see as something got a little bit more, okay, I did that, I completed a back piece at that level, that was a really cool thing, and now like, okay, what's next then, rather than hammering the same thing over and over again and just allowing it to get stale, making sure that I'm feeding that other side of myself and just making sure there's something else going on. But there's a, like, the one wouldn't be possible at all without the other, you know. So and like the addition of the layered patterns, you know, it came from like a small.
Oh yeah, it's gorgeous.
Too chaotic. But you know, but yeah, so this was like the first one with the pattern work there, see. So, and it was just kind of, we've got the brush strokes around there, and then just using like a zinc white. I don't know if you've used the zinc white golden fluid acrylic.
I
um
have.
yeah, it's just got this proper nice smokiness to it, you know. I know there's concerns about whether zinc is going to age well, but you know, in the, you know, I don't
I,
do it for it to age well. I do it to enjoy the painting itself. So, you know.
I've noticed that with a lot of different artists, and even some of the gallery artists that I'm in constant connection with, in the Philadelphia art scene. A lot of them are like, yeah, okay, so it's not going to last 12,000 years. I'm okay with that. You know, it's like sometimes artwork isn't meant to last
Mm,
that long a period of time. It's meant to be enjoyed while it's there and while it's active, while it still looks good. And then after that, it's like, okay, it's had that period of time. It's time to move on. It's time to evolve from there.
yeah.
Um, you know, and that's when I was talking to this one artist that, you know, told me that, it blew my mind, because I was always under the assumption like, oh man, you got to paint for longevity. Like you need to make sure everything is on the up and up. Like you can't do this. You can't paint on cardboard. You can't do it. You know, craft paper, brown craft paper, forget it. Never. And, you know, it's like, but that's not the point. The point is to allow that art to come to life, to allow it to be what it is. And then when its time has passed, it's time to move on. It's time to evolve. And, you know, it completely changed my outlook on a lot of the things that I do and a lot of the things I paint with and play with and, you know, different types of artwork. It's just, it's awesome to hear that coming from, you know, someone else. It just kind of validates things.
Yeah,
Um,
more of that.
what would you say if you could point to any one specific moment in time or one specific event that really you could say had like the most amount of impact on your career as an artist? What would that be?
I think you know, I went on a pilgrimage to the Venetian tattoo gathering, and that was it. You know, it was a 14-day trip. We drove all the way down, guesting along the way, and it was kind of um, like the main thing. I ended up jumping in with a bunch of different seminars. It was Marcus Leonard. It was um, Jeff Gogwe, um, and I think there was another as well. Gabe's business one was there. Derb did an exercise one as well, for yoga and stuff like that. But the Jeff Gogwe one in specifically, right? There was a part in there. He said, people always ask me, how do you find those clients which will let you do bodysuits? And he said that you're probably already tattooing them. You just need to look after those guys, and you need to be able to pitch bigger and show them what it'd look like, and earn their confidence honestly. And I think without that piece of advice, I would never have had the confidence to really pitch bigger, and to feel like, I'm never going to find the right clients. I'm never going, it's hard, right? Especially when you come up with something so novel, right? When you are embarking on something where it takes somebody who's got a real desire to join you on that mission of being something new, right? To be this expression that has never existed before, right? And it just celebrates, especially as bio, right, which moves away from human meaning making, and it is about flow. It's about the pigment, the lineages of knowledge, and just allowing it to be just those things, and that is a sacred thing for me. I really mean that, right? There's a quote: as humans, we're allowed our folly, as long as it comes with the discovery of what loves us by dying to feed us more than we love our hate, right? So it comes from Martin Practel, who's like a Guatemalan spiritual leader who, and basically I took that to mean is like, we're allowed our folly. It's, like, who gives us this? Oh, okay, we're allowed this kind of crazy experience as long as we love where it comes from. And for me, that's the lineages, it's the materials, it's that moment in time that you share with somebody and everything that led them to your door. And then just like together coming up with something totally different, and just enjoying that and just sitting in that role, right? That we get to be that in that moment. We are to this planet what our cells are to us. There's no communication between our cells and our consciousness, right? But there's a connection of some description there, and to sit into that role as that type of organ, right? If we're all a type of organ for this weird planet, then we're this kind of clever-handed, creative being that gets to bring all these elements from all over the world and just transmit knowledge through oral tradition, and then through books and arcane symbology. What is writing if not an occult practice? It's so interesting when you get into it. It's like, if you know the secret meaning of the symbols, you understand the knowledge. That's just writing. but everything can be that deep, and like, I think the longer you spend in the appreciation of where we are right now, with the luxury of the pigments that we have, and just the materials, the machines, like, that becomes a real inspiration in itself. So yeah, awesome.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I think you really hit the nail on the head with something you just said about how, especially with bio, how it kind of, transcends this representational knowledge
Yeah.
of what most people think about, right? I mean, as one of my friends once put it, when you're looking at bio, you don't look at it as being representational. You look at it as visual thought. Like, if you could visualize what a thought could be, where things could go, that's what you would be looking at. And, it, once again, what you just said is very clear. It does transcend that. And I love the fact that you show that kind of respect through the craft, through that style, and how you integrate all of the history and the culture of all of the hundreds and thousands of years of tattooing, and you bring that all into what's led you to this direction. I think it's absolutely fascinating. It's awesome.
Yeah, it's real grounded spirituality for me. Like, spirituality isn't, it's realizing we're in a spiritual existence right now, and that everything has these layers of meaning and history, you know, and that we get to be at this kind of moment in the middle of this hourglass of before and after, you know, everything that goes into it, and then everything that is going to generate every conversation, everything it inspires afterwards. And we're kind of in this little middle bit at all, you know, during that 6-hour session. And like the realization of that is shocking when you really like start understanding how much is each side of that, right? And that only really comes through being in the industry for a bit longer. And like, oh, I've had conversations with people 3 times removed from this one tattoo, you know, and it's just like and now it's coming back to me 12 years later, you know, and it's, oh, you know, it's a privilege, right? And I think that the scale of it kind of pushed me into like, okay, well, what are you really doing here when you do this bio stuff, right? Is this novelty theory and the pursuit of that, and the abandonment of the human meaning making, is it really worth it? And you know, I balance it with, I've got my community tattoos. Half of the work I don't post because it's roses and the names of their loved ones and the dogs, right? I love doing that, right? That's one half of the job. But for my own, you know, my own creative soul, it needs to have something extra, whether that comes through the painting or not, or the tattooing, it doesn't really matter. But when somebody joins me for that and we get to like, what are we going to do then? What's your favorite color, you know, and which part of the body are we going to go with, you know? And that's what the question is like. And we'll iterate and we'll play around, and then yeah, it gets juicy after that.
Yeah, right. So let me ask you this: looking at the tattoos that you have done, and looking at, well, the tattoos that you've posted, that I have personally seen, um, looking at the elements of art that you include into each tattoo, what would you say if you had to pick like one element that you really try to emphasize the most when you're creating these tattoos? um, you know, what would you say you really try to emphasize the most? I know, listening to a Gogwe seminar a couple years ago, he tries to put a lot of emphasis on line, and how, you know, as long as he knows that the lines are there and the lines are crafted in such a way, using bold lines and little lines and gray lines and no lines, and you know, as long as the tattoo is crafted in such a way, he knows that anything he does after that is just going to be a bonus. It's just going to make it look that much better. If you had to really put emphasis on something that you include, whether it's in your paintings or your tattoos, what would it be and why?
I think it's volume, you know, like this idea of creating the perception of depth. And then, you know, within the paintings, there's already a sense of that, you know, as you work through. I had like a restricted kind of rainbow color palette that served me very well. And it would go from these real dark purple reds, which would really kind of take the foreground. And then, you know, it'd work through the spectrum to the yellows and just get further and further back. And I really loved what like the value would do there. So when it comes to like reapplying it to the skin, then using the body to inform like where the edges of those values are, you know, how, you know, any of the good bio stuff, right? You've got these real dark kind of foreground sections, you've got your highlight light edges, and then you've got this kind of space. And just the idea of creating space in that way, I just I get so fascinated by it. And then it's like, how many layers can you get before it's almost like too blended? How many distinct layers can you get? And I think I'm on like 3 or 4. You know, I did a black leg sleeve recently, and like there's bits where it goes right down to skin and white highlight lines and stuff. And there's like, you can kind of see it going down into this like almost like a crevasse of depth, you know. And I just really, yeah, like, so this is where the name for one of my more arty page came from, psychedelic space, right? This idea of like creating volume from that. Yeah.
That's awesome. It's something that you see in a lot of really incredible artists, whether they work in bio or not. And I can point to a couple of phenomenal artists just right off the top of my head that really utilize it. Doesn't matter if you're looking at, human skin, even though you are looking at a three-dimensional surface. It doesn't matter if they're painting on a canvas or drawing on a piece of paper. They're transforming whatever flat surface they're working on into this three-dimensional space with infinite possibilities and infinite levels. But there is a key there, right? And you touched on that as well, where it's how deep can you go before you start to lose any kind of clarity or definition, right? Because as things recede from us, they become less and less clear. Just based on the values and theories of perspective and how we utilize that in different things. And you've definitely created that depth. I mean, I can see it in any given piece that I've seen of yours. I can see a minimum of 3 separate layers. You can see that real close foreground layer that's almost in complete shadow from this ambient light behind it. And then you've got, a couple of middle layers. So I can definitely see a minimum of 3, which is where I think most people tend to stop. They're like, yeah, I've got foreground, middle ground, background. That's all I need.
Yeah.
Right. But for people that are chasing those additional layers, man, I applaud you.
Yeah.
Because that's just taking it to a whole new level, but you see that with a lot of these incredible artists. Look at anything Guy does, look at anything Marcus does, look at people like Steve Moore from Canada.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, you want to talk about someone who's utilizing every plane of existence, from extreme foreground foreshortening all the way back to excessive background. I mean, really pushing the bounds of the space that can be seen on a flat surface. It's something I've been chasing my entire life, and I've gotten to 3 layers, and I can do 3 layers pretty well. Pushing beyond that has been such a struggle for me that it's really difficult. So the fact that you can pull off, more than that is like, oh, all right.
Sometimes,
wow. I mean, what I've seen you do. I mean, even looking at the bottle you just showed us. I mean, you've got at least 4 layers of depth in that, minimum, that I can personally pick out. I can guarantee you there's way more, but that's just what I initially saw in that real quick pass by the screen that you did. And I was like, oh man, like, what is that? It's a universe in bottle shape,
I love painting objects, right? Rather than just like a flat surface is great, but it was so reminiscent of working with the body to inform the shape and the structure of the composition. Working on guitars, the bottles were really good because, every little curve and nook and cranny it dictates where the brushstroke has to go. Right. And this kind of pursuit of balance and harmony, and at the same time keeping this kind of color theory. If you're working through a gradient to create that volume, that it imposes a set of laws or parameters that allows that subconscious kind of painting to have to abide to. So there's less thinking then as well, because there is that kind of structure there, and I find that very liberating. So yeah, I think I get a little bit funny when it comes to trying out like new color palettes. If I haven't like just experimented at least a couple of times before, like how am I going to get from that color to there? And they're actually too similar in value, and those are your favorite colors, but can we go like that dark? I wasn't sure I'm going that dark, but it's like, but look at it in context now, and you mock it up, and thankfully we have Procreate these days, and that is an amazing, it was a game changer, wasn't it? So here's a photo of your arm, and this is how amazing it could be. So
here, let me throw this up here with an AR filter on it. And I'm just going to throw the design on here, and if you look at the screen here, you can really see, what this is going to look like on your arm. It's what technology has been able to do for us in this day and age is fantastic when it works. I come from a background. I've got a background in information technology. on top of, my lifelong obsession with studying tattoos. And technology is fantastic when it works, but when it doesn't, and it doesn't work the way that you think it's going to,
Mm.
it can be so frustrating.
Yeah.
But that's why I'm a huge advocate of, you know, working with digital medium is fantastic. And it really provides us with a lot of advantages, a lot of shortcuts, and a lot of additional tools that we can add to that toolbox. But I'm also a huge advocate of being able to sit down and say, okay, here's a pencil, here's a piece of paper. What you just did on your iPad, you should be able to do on the paper. Do it. Um, and there are certain people out there in this day and age that do not have that ability. They've all they know is drawing on an iPad. They've never experienced creating analog artwork.
Double tap
Yeah.
in the paper.
So funny story. I was actually out at a tattoo convention, and I'm not going to mention which convention or when this was, but I was at a tattoo convention in the past couple of years, and with no lie, I actually saw a tattoo artist double tap on a client as they were working. And I just remember sitting back and saying, is this what we've become? Like, is this what
Yeah.
technology is training us to do?
Yeah.
Like, and
Wouldn't that be
it's like,
convenient though?
yeah, oh man, wouldn't that be great? No, that line we're just gonna delete that real quick. There you go. We're just gonna do that one again. Wait, where's my streamline feature? Let me
Yeah.
turn that up.
And the video, nice. Yep, there
Yeah.
you go. Content.
But it was like, obviously that's someone that, has been brought up, and they were a younger tattooer. They'd only been tattooing for like 2 or 3 years. They didn't really have a whole lot of experience with analog artwork or, sitting down with paper and pencil and actually drawing. They didn't, like, everything that they did was digital, everything. They didn't draw or paint anything unless it was on an iPad. And it kind of reflected in that one moment where this is all that you know. There were certain times in the past when, I'd be working on a stencil, and, part of the stencil wouldn't come out, and I'd try to draw some of it in. And, I actually caught myself trying to flip the Sharpie around as I was drawing part of the stencil on to try to erase some of it. Cause that's what if you're sketching it out by hand and you need to go to erase something, that's what you do.
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
And sure enough, I just used my thumb and smudged it out, and it created this great gradient effect. So I kind of kept that trick going in my toolbox for a while.
I love those. Yep.
Yeah. It's like if you know how to work with Sharpies on skin, you can actually paint on skin before you begin, and it's fantastic.
Yeah.
It's one of my very favorite things to do. It's like, yeah, let's see how this is going to look. Okay, and smudge. Yep. But it really gives people a better understanding of what this could look like if we did this like this and this like this. The downside is that you got to keep a ton of Sharpies on hand for that. To show different colors and gradients and things like that. But it's neither here nor there. But I work digitally, I work analog. I've got analog paintings I'm working on all the time, just to keep my hand moving, and just to keep me from getting too into that I don't want to double tap on a client kind of mentality. It keeps me from that. But it does allow us a lot of great tools. But I do not think that, personally speaking, I could ever desire to become solely reliant on working digitally. I would always want to retain that aspect of working with pencil on paper or brush on canvas, or brush on paper, depending on the medium you choose. I would always want to retain that because I find that there's a lot more valuable skills in that as well, that I can directly apply to the tattoos that I do. My coworker made a comment the other day as I was finishing up a painting. He's like, "Oh, dude, you're not using like a paint pen on that to go through and do all your outlines?" And I said, "Why would I do that? I have a brush right here." And I'm gonna mentally and mechanically, as far as muscle memory goes, I'm going to get more out of using a brush than I am using that pen.
Yeah.
So there's that direct correlation there. Um, and I love seeing artists that create analog artwork. Like if it was up to me, I'd just go and watch people like Sean Barber or Gogwe or yourself, even Guy, and just sit down and like I'd love to just watch a painting in person in every stage, even if it took like a month or two, right? Just going and sitting and observing the creation of this work of art from start to finish. You know, it to me, there's nothing more entertaining and valuable um, to me than to see that, because you're literally watching the birth of something that never existed before.
Yeah. Yeah. Which is then going to go off and have its own life, we're getting to the middle of that hourglass again.
Exactly.
And it's like, yeah, there's something exciting about that. I would love to come and live paint maybe Paradise, maybe if not this year, 1 year for sure. Come and do some big 6 foot by 4 foot canvas and just get super intuitive with it.
Well, I've got a 6x3 here that has yet to be claimed.
Hey, bring it down, brother.
So, I mean, who knows? Maybe that'll show up at Paradise. This past year, we actually had a great collaborative art. This was all after hours. This took place from like 11 o'clock at night until probably 3 in the morning. And I believe it was Saturday night. So I help out a lot with Paradise, and I am in charge of bringing up art supplies for people, traveling artists that might not want to bring like a whole gouache or oil palette, or maybe it's people that want to work in watercolors, but they aren't quite sure what to use. It's like, cool, don't worry about it. Come and ask me. I have it here. No matter what your medium is, what you like to work on, I always bring it up. And I make sure I've got something for everyone in every medium they want. You want to work with a brush and powdered charcoal? I have it. But
Wow.
this past year we did collaborative artwork. We had 3 easels going, and I think Gabe has a video of this somewhere on live stream. We had 3 easels going with brown paper and charcoal, and I think it was charcoal and white Conti crayon for highlights, and they're all set up portrait style. And reflecting back on something that you said before about how you saw that continuous linear path going through each thing that you created separately.
Yeah.
Well, there were probably 15 artists working on these 3 individual pieces. And we were looking at them, and someone made the suggestion. They were like, why don't we just turn it into a triptych? And so we turned every single board on its side. I think we turned one clockwise, one counterclockwise, and the other one, I think, was also clockwise. And it created this beautiful, like, mountain landscape. Thank you, Gunnar, by the way, for creating that mountain. Bravo. Got to give credit where credit's due. Gunnar came in and he's like, we're doing a landscape, and started drawing a mountain.
Off we go. Yeah.
And so we've got this mountain landscape into this like light medium kind of tone bio into the second piece. That second piece then flows into the third piece, which gets a lot darker and a lot deeper and a lot more in the foreground with this beautiful light texture. If I pull it up, which I know I can because I know I've got it on here. I'll show you exactly what I'm talking about. If I can find the folder that it was in. That was...
Those live collabs are wild. The one in Venice, Boris Vallejo is working on one. And
oh, man.
Boris
Vallejo's work is... I have always looked at that guy's work as just on a whole new level.
Yeah.
Where was... well, I've got it in here somewhere. I'll send you the... once I can find them, I'll send them to you. But I'm not quite sure. I've got so many different files on here from different things. It's kind of ridiculous. Maybe I can clean this up real quick.
just in the comments can see Mohawk's like a bit of a
Yeah.
traditionalist. It's pretty cool. Yeah, it's amazing how many different ways that you can get your work done, right? You know, I love people that stick to what they know and just still come out with amazing stuff. So yeah, wicked.
Here we go. I think
Yeah.
I can open this up in. Here's number 3. Then we'll do. These are huge files too, because I digitally photographed each one of them so that I could create fine art prints from them, because that's a secondary kind of side
Yeah.
project I have. I love helping out other artists to recreate their original work of art, whether it's digital or analog. So I had a few minutes at the end of Paradise Gathering before the final seminar and the closing words, and actually photographed each one of them with multiple tiles, multiple photos. It was absolutely fantastic. And what we created the night before, even though I was running off of about 2 hours of sleep for that entire day, it was just fantastic. It was absolutely incredible what was achieved when all of these artists got together and decided to create art in such a harmonic way. Um,
And it's of that
for
moment, right? Like that was a
Yeah,
happening, right? Those times will never come. Like, yeah, like bravo to you for being present in that moment and applying yourself to getting that permanent record of it. You know, so
oh,
it.
absolutely. Well, I still have the originals too. So
Oh,
yeah, everyone's like, "Who's taking these home?" I'm like, "I am. My paper, my charcoal. I'm taking it home."
you can
I
have
wouldn't
prints.
have been opposed to someone else being like, "Hey, man, do you mind if I grab one of these?" But I was like, "Let me get everything digitized first, and
Yeah,
then once that's done, we'll be good to go." But up until that point, it's like, let me do this first,
yeah,
then we'll bring you in.
yeah.
Um,
I've got a
that
great guy
was
who digitized my paintings. The last time I had ones they were really polished. The last evolution of them, and it was advice that I got from Tom Strom, and you know, I was just blown away by one of his canvas prints, the quality of it.
Mhm.
Sorry. And you know, he said just really invest in a high quality scanner, you know, and
Yeah,
like, you know, I've seen these big huge scanning machines that kind of just do it all for you, and they're amazing, but there isn't any of those in my area. So I've got one guy actually who is into the visionary art scene in the UK, who just came in and he just photo composited a bunch and just like made it perfect. You know, I think he took about 4 or 5 days and just did 3 of them, and they're just there forever now, right? You
yeah.
can make merch off of that forever. I've made a coat, like, you know, it's so trippy.
All right, so I've got these pulled up, and I'm going to see if I can share
Hell
my
yeah.
desktop screen. Let me just wait until this final one rotates. Come on now. My computer is a little bit slower, but it works well. Um, let's see. Oh, I did that wrong. That goes like that. Still waiting. Yeah, hopefully if you decide to come out this year or next year, either way works for me. Um, you know, I always set up these after hours kind of drawing things for everyone.
Hell yeah.
Uh,
I'm in. Yes.
yeah, it's just a great time for people to get together and hang out,
Yeah.
and collaborate on different stuff. It's
And
just it's awesome.
I'm not a drinker. You know, I'll have a couple, you know, to get loose, but like I love to get creative like that. It breaks the ice. You get to know people on a different level.
Right.
Like, how open are you? How giving are you with each other, like in this space, you know? But also, how decisive can you be when it's your turn? Oh wow. Oh man.
So this is one of them that was created. Um, and
Whoa.
like I said, I think there were like 12 or 15 different artists just, tagging in, tagging out. Sometimes, an artist would be, one guy would work on one side and then jump over to the other side. And then someone else would jump in to fill his spot. This is one of the other ones that was created. As I was saying earlier, getting 3 layers is, doable. I think
Yeah,
most people
for
can
sure.
do that. When you start to really push the bounds beyond that is when you really start to see the genius that it takes to create that. And this is the mountain image. I still have a little bit of color correction to do on it to bring out some of those lighter values so it's true to tone. But you've got these real deep mountains in the background over here. Then you've got some other like little obscured trees. You got this kind of ghost pagoda over here. This gorgeous mountain scene going on. And then right here in this foreground, you've got this bio hook that kind of comes out from the previous painting. And actually, I think this one needs to be flipped.
So it just runs straight off
Yeah.
of it. Wow.
So once this rotates, but yeah, they kind of all flow right into each other. Seeing them individually on the screen is not the best way to view it, but
Yeah.
you get the idea. Yeah. So from
Oh,
there,
wow.
that upper left corner would flow right into here.
Yeah. That's so cool, man.
Yeah,
Fair
it was
play.
just a brilliant time with everyone.
It's funny how like bio is like the go-to amongst I don't know, there's just something about it, isn't there? It's just so friendly to just jump into, and just
Yeah,
less pressure. You can just enjoy just iterating, like, okay, well, just what comes. But that wave, that kind of down, over, and back around, that's like, it's been coming through a lot for me recently, just with I've got a sketchbook as well that I'll just paint straight into the sketchbook just to kind of loosen up the shapes, which is where the more recent stuff has come from. And I'll just take a couple of spray cans, spray a gradient on it, and just paint directly with white. And that'll be where I'll put the negatives when I reapply it to the body. So
right.
but yeah, it's very much the same kind of shape. There's just like, well, you've got this kind of rectangular kind of volume there, and with I realized that I'm way out the bloody screen. But yeah, it's funny how there's, even though my language is very different, obviously, like there's a lot of similarities in the actual stroke and the general flow of it. It's yeah. Sorry.
Yeah.
I don't know where I'm
In
going with that.
shows and in these interviews, we tend to, kind of get off topic quite
Yeah,
a bit. So,
good fun though.
yeah, well, it's that organic kind of interview. It's like, let's see where this goes. Let's see what this discussion brings us and what knowledge there is to be had from this. Speaking of which, I have just a couple other questions that I have outlined, and I've been not really looking at the question sheet that I have
Yeah.
too much today, but that's okay because I've really enjoyed this conversation. Um, so, what would you say are some of the current challenges that you're facing with your artwork, with everything that you're creating? What would you say some of the more current challenges would be?
I think outside of industry stuff, in terms of in Wales, we're going through a new load of legislation, which is probably better for the industry. It's more, usually we have like done by county, and it's kind of nice that there's going to be a whole Welsh qualification now, which we're licensed wherever we go in Wales. So it saves us, applying for new licenses if we do guest spots or anything like that, which is, it's nice. But it's requiring a little bit of work, and it was meant to be affordable, and then there's been like price hikes and little things like that. But so that's the only thing really within the industry. I think as we evolve as artists in the shop, making sure that we we stay connected to each other, you know, just making sure that the vibe in the studio is good, that kind of fosters, you know, good tattooing. So you know, we communicate really well and openly, and that's kind of how we get over that. And then in terms of like the challenges facing the evolution of the tattoo novelty in the next step, and it's just finding those that are on board with you with the vision, right? And I don't like to be pushy with it. It's not, I don't want to go on a hard sell for this kind of thing. It's like, I'm going to keep iterating until that kind of period is done, right? And I've had it recently, well, probably about 6 months ago, that somebody wanted a version that I was doing 5 years previous. And the guy's a really nice guy. I'm actually going to work on him at a tattoo convention in a month or so. And you know, he lives about 150 miles north. So and it's just kind of nice, and knowing that if I just put it out there, maybe it'll take people a little while to kind of get used to. I've got work in the meantime, you know, and just kind of having patience and also honoring that creative impulse enough. So how much do you promote something, right, without it becoming, you know, I'm trying to ram this down people's throat, you know, it's just about me and my vision. I don't want people to kind of think that I'm disconnected from what I've already been doing, you know, because I'm still very happy about all the projects I've still got in process, even though my style and my own output is evolving. So that's one thing I get a little bit stuck on, is like, do I dare reach too far with my natural ideation when the current projects are still, you know, last year's, maybe 2 years ago, if it's a slow project where people have budgetary concerns. And you know, it's a very kind of relaxed way of going about it. But I have recently started a new process with my bookings, so I finished a full sleeve in 3 weeks with 7 separate sessions, and just like, you know, where she only had a very limited time before she was working away again, and we do, oh no, it was over 6 weeks, sorry, but it was like a double session, a fortnight later another double, and then a double and a single, but broken up but in that week. And that way it was just, actually it was the one on the ad, the little screenshot of me, so it's like the one with the black and grey castle. So that was all done in about 6 weeks. And so now that's the kind of process that I would really like to bring in now. Is like, if I can, now I'm getting a little bit more accurate with my timing, I'm more likely to say, why don't you wait until you've got enough to cover, you know, the first 6 sessions at least, so that the idea is solidified within that style and it's kind of on. Like, if it hasn't and we can't do that, then that's fine, you know, no pressure. If you want to just build, if you like having a relationship with me, and that's what I get with a lot of my clients, is like, they only want one a month, and they are happy to have that one a month, you know, until the end of time, because that's their hangout time, it's their time for themselves, you know. And that's also, you've got to be responsive to that. It's not just about getting the piece for the portfolio perfectly healed. Like, when that guy I was saying I tattooed for 12 years with the blue bio and the back piece with the tree on, you know, his work just is never really at a photographic stage, because it just keeps evolving. I'll take snippets of little bits and I share little bits like that, but it's really not like that. You know, we're kind of in this for the long haul. You know, Stu is like, I wouldn't be the artist I am without this guy. He's always just had this encouragement. But yeah, the challenge to like not reach too far, or to do it boldly, and just have faith that, you know what, like, if you're following that intuition, then that's worth something, right? And whether that comes out through me, or whether even if by posting it another artist takes that idea and runs with it, I'm okay with that, you know. Like, I've seen enough stuff over the years that, like, you know, when somebody gives a meme in tattooing to the community, right? I think when Matt Driscoll was doing these kind of colored outlines around things, which kind of let things pop out from the background, and then he told me that it was from Logan Barracuda, I think, and there was, you know, and then all of a sudden there were like white lines or colored lines around things in New School, you know, and it's just like, you just kind of let that go, and you kind of add these different means into the pot, and somebody will do something a bit different, and it just kind of adds to it. And I don't mind contributing to tattooing in that way anyway, right? So whether I take it on or not, like, I'm not overly possessive of that. Like, I've seen people who get really crabby about, I do something a certain way, and okay, if you've worked hard to that way and you feel strongly about that for your work, I respect your choice to make that line for yourself. But I choose to go a bit of a different way with it. I've been informed by what I've seen on the internet, and there's been so much that I have, just naturally absorbed just by watching Instagram for a decade, that has informed my my taste, what naturally comes out. It's not that it's kind of taken, but you have to recognize that what you see is an influence, and your influences come out in these strange ways. But, coming back to it, that is why it is important to have your own direct practice, right? Where you can have your own novelty. So, having those little novel moments and just having faith that, it's going to serve a purpose anyway, even if not in the short term, so that's a challenge that I need to remind myself with.
Right on. So second to last question, and then I promise I'll,
No, it's cool.
stop taking up too much of your time. So if you had to give one piece of advice to any new budding artist out there, what would it be?
So if they're young, go and get a normal job first and appreciate just work and, work ethics, because I think that's been one of the number one things of juniors that try and get a job in the shop and just don't really want to work hard, right? But people that have done 3 years in McDonald's and then a year or two in an insurance company on the other end of a phone, who know about the structure of a day, like, they're always hungrier, right? They're always like more keen. So just in terms of work ethic, like, just make sure you've got a broader experience before coming to the shop, and be able to have a conversation, right? Like, it's such an important thing. Like, if you are a prospective apprentice going into a shop and you can't hold a conversation, it's not great for the art. Like, I'm bringing you into a special place here, that we protect the environment to make sure that everyone, there's a lot of different moving parts here, so you have to approach things with respect. So I think that's important. And then drawing, analog art, something outside of tattooing that is just like feeding your creativity in other ways, I think is real important. So there's a couple there, but yeah, it's I think I'm singing from the same songbook as you guys. It's very much a case of, through iteration and through experimentation in other mediums and bringing something back, it can add something new and exciting to what we do, right? But yeah.
Awesome. And final question for today. What truths have you found that are simple but not easy about your style, about your process, about the tattoo industry, um, generalities in life? What truths have you found?
The one that instantly springs to mind, just don't be a cunt. Like, I try my best to live by it. Whether it's to, it's your it's very relational what we do, like, remember, be aware that, like, you are going into somebody's body, right? You are there becoming a permanent reminder of your conversation, whether you forget it or not. As an artist, that person will remember the smallest minutiae of details about that whole session, that will be totally out of your head amongst the other 20 people that you tattooed that week. But to them, like, you are in that. So if you can just be a good person pretty consistently, then you don't need to worry about it too much, and you can hold your head high in community, and that's a great feeling. And that, really comes from doing your best to serve others in the best way you can. Yeah. Don't be a cunt. There you go, mate. I'll leave it
Great.
at that.
Could not agree more, man. Great advice, and thank you. So that's kind of all I really had for today. Tattoos by Mohawk said, thank you for you two for being humble. I enjoyed watching and listening. Really appreciate you, and especially for dropping comments. Double kudos. Thank you very much. Joe, thank you so much. This has been an honor. Let's link up again soon, man. I'd love to continue our discussions and chat some more and, maybe see what we can do. I mean, maybe I'll figure out time and take a trip over to the UK to visit.
Anytime.
I'd love to come out and just, hang out and do art and, watch some tattoos being done. I love doing that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I've been out to the UK several times, and I actually still have some pounds I need to switch over to the new currency. I know it like they switched currency, so it expired, and but I know if I go to a bank, I can probably still get it switched out for new bills.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, man. Anytime you'd be welcome at the shop. Jump in on my booth. I'd love to get a little piece. I love getting anything from a guest.
Dude, I got so many things I've had, some of which I've had up for grab for years, which I'm in the process of redesigning with new knowledge, new insight, new perspectives, new techniques. Some of which is stuff that, I've created for more recent shows that no one just ever wanted. Like, who doesn't want an angry gorilla tattoo? Like, I just think it's, awesome. I love it.
Yeah. Well, I haven't got one yet. So
yeah, well, I mean, it's funny. It's more, some of it's more comical. Some of it's more creative. Some of it's more like, why would you ever get that tattooed? Someone out there will fall in love with it. Whoever resonates with that, that's what they will choose.
Yeah.
But once again, thank you so much for this. Keep in touch. And if you don't keep in touch, I'll keep in touch. I'll just start blowing up your Instagram. Tell us, speaking of which, tell us how we can get a hold of you if we want to get tattooed or talk to you about paintings and artwork and stuff like that.
Yeah, so there's two main websites that I've got going on at the minute. There's the joescustomtattoo.com, which is all about my journey into art and where you can reach out about any kind of bookings. I've got a bit of a shop there. I've recently written a book, but we'll get into that another time maybe. And then the viastreettattoos.com is the shop one, and it just gives you a little bit more history about the studio, the other artists that work there, and yeah, just what we're trying to do in South Wales, bring a little bit of our respect from what came before. It just seems like, yeah, just really realizing and remembering that our grandparents really worked hard and suffered to raise families in this area, especially during such a poor time, like a good while back, like Irish immigrants that came over during the potato famine and built Barry docks, and just this mad constellation of different cultures on this port town, and it's just created such an interesting place. So there's a bit of that on the viastreettattoos.com website. So, but yeah, thank you so much for the opportunity to come and have a lovely conversation, and very, very grateful for this. And yeah,
it's been an honor and a pleasure. Thank you very much. Take care. Have a great day.
Legend,
and
man.
Everyone that's still watching, thank you very much. Have a great day. And yeah, I will see everyone next Monday for another show.
Take care, man.